The internet is on fire with one name, Gary Anderson. Listeners say Night Dreams Talk Radio is like the mystery of Art Bell colliding with the bravado of Rush Limbaugh. And it feels like the golden age of talk radio in the 70s, 80s, and 90s. Reborn for today. UFOs, conspiracies, the unexplained. It's all here. And we're not even going to tell you about the killer bumper music from the 70s through the 90s. You'll just have to hear it for yourself. Night Dreams Talk Radio. Once you tune in, you'll never turn it off.
By the way, friends, if you hear ads during the stream, those are placed by the apps like iHeart, Spotify, and TuneIn. They help keep those platforms free. We've moved our own sponsors to the very end of the show, so you can enjoy the conversation without interruptions from us.
Who's friends with all the night dreamers talking to you at night? Gary on the radio, but maybe he's not in sight. Bigfoot's on his tail, flying UFOs, that's right. Gary's talk show radio, Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday nights. If you need a friend to talk to, he will always be there. The Night Dreamers Talk Show will fix your despair. If you want to talk conspiracies, Night Dreamers is for you. Top secret case, alien space, it's Gary with the news. Tune in on the radio, don't let Big Brother know. They're listening to everything, even Gary's late night show. If you need a friend to talk to, he will always be there. The Night Show Dreamers Talk Show will fix your despair, because Gary's talking to you at night.
Coming to you from the great Northwest, deep in the forest, down at the compound. Well, I'm the host, Gary, and I want to say to all you folks, thank you for tuning in tonight. It's going to be a great show. We're going to be talking, the three-eye atlas, maybe aliens, and a lot more tonight with our guest, backed by demand. And it's going to be a fantastic show. JC, are you ready to go for a ride here tonight?
I am ready. I even put on my seatbelt so I don't get thrown out of my seat, because it's going to be a rocking show, Gary.
Are you saying I'm a bad driver?
I would never do such things, but if you're admitting it, that's part of the recovery, so good for you.
Well, you should ride with my wife.
Yeah.
Like if you go on the freeways, the things that keep you from going off the road on the side of the road.
Jersey barrier?
Yeah, I put it this way. You could not put your hand between the car door and that barrier. She goes that far to the right. It scares me.
I like the people when they make a left or right hand turn, they go way out to the right to overcompensate, and like they're driving a big rig.
I've only had one accident in all these years driving, and it was in a parking lot. I saw this old locomotive up by Mount Rainier, and I stuck the car in reverse to take a picture of it, and there was a barrier behind it. There was a barrier behind it, and there was a back bumper on the car. That's all I can say.
Well, yeah, and then you got them accidents that happen by, when you go like to Canada and things.
Oh, you mean up the Canadian Rockies?
Yeah, that one.
Yeah, where supposedly I ran into a Bigfoot with my friend who's a medical doctor.
Yeah, with the rock.
Yeah. Well, he didn't have the rock. The Bigfoot did.
Yeah.
And it took out, remember, it took out the passenger fender and the door and all that. And it was horrible. And then you sat there and got me in so much trouble for the years talking about that, by the way.
I wouldn't do such things.
Well, everybody, I am so glad to be back after being off for well over a month. The surgery went fine. Everything has gone fine. I actually even had all my teeth, upper teeth pulled out, and naturally the device they made to put in is not working. So I'm talking toothless tonight.
The toothless wonder has spoken.
Well,
you're doing a good job anyway.
Well, put it this way. I lost a lot of weight here.
You have. I can tell. I can see it in your face. You have lost a lot of weight.
No, it's just getting old. Anyway, let's find information about our guest. You want to do that?
Yeah, I'm excited. Let's do it.
Okay.
Dr. Gregory Rogers, DO, aerospace medicine expert and UAP witness. Dr. Gregory Rogers is a retired U.S. Air Force major and former Chief of Aerospace Medicine for the 45th Space Wing at Cape Canaveral, with over 40 years of service in military and space medicine. He was trained at NASA's Johnson Space Center and supported numerous manned and unmanned space missions. In 1992, while stationed at Cape Canaveral, Dr. Rogers was shown classified footage of a 20-foot disc-shaped craft marked with U.S. Air Force insignia, hovering silently and defying conventional aerodynamics. When he asked about its origin, the response was chilling. "We got it from them." Since retiring, Dr. Rogers has spoken publicly on UAP encounters and currently serves on the board of directors for the International UFO Bureau, lending his credibility and first-hand experience to the global conversation on unexplained aerial phenomena.
Well, Greg, welcome back to the show, my friend. And how have you been doing?
I will say that I've been doing well.
That's fantastic. That's better than the other. Now,
Oh, sort of.
yeah, I guess sort of. But, everywhere you go, like I was telling you before we went on the air in our conversation, if you go on TikTok, you go on YouTube, or listen to all these million podcasts out there, everybody is talking either politics or they're talking about the 3-eye atlas. And I am now to the point, I don't know what to believe anymore. I mean, I read Abby Loeb's report and all that, and that is really concerning. But again, we had this conversation. What is going on?
Well, for me, the key is I am not an astrophysicist, so the trajectory coming into the solar system is very unusual, within 5 degrees of the ecliptic, meaning that the planets of the sun are basically in an orbit at about the same point surrounding the sun. Well, this is coming in only 5 degrees off, so this is the kind of thing that if we were going to plan pass by 3 of the planets, this would be the kind of trajectory we would use. But I'm not about to say that because that trajectory is so unusual that I'm immediately going to jump to any conclusions. However, what I do know is the chemistry of what we used for our spacecraft when I was at Cape Canaveral and associated with Kennedy Space Center. When we make our satellites, when we make our space probes, when we created the space shuttle, we use a whole host of special alloys, many of them including nickel. And this was routine for what we were doing. Now, then we did not want iron because it was heavy and it also corrodes. And so in our spacecraft, we had a lot of nickel and 0 amount of iron. Yet we know that in the nuclear furnaces of exploding stars, that when they create iron, they also create nickel, and when they create nickel, they also create iron. So prior to this point in our history, we have never seen a natural source of nickel all by itself. Now then, we as humans have created through industrialization the ability to separate nickel from iron and then use that nickel in special alloys that we want to use for our spacecraft. And there are big advantages of using nickel alloys. But in nature, we've never seen this. And so when we look at the 3I Atlas, there are a lot of peculiarities that different people want to talk about. And, as you said, there are podcasts with all sorts of discussions about why somebody believes it's a natural comet, why somebody believes it's not. But just from the chemistry, there is no way natural rock coming in from space should have no iron and yet have multiple nickel alloys being detected. So that disturbs me greatly.
Well, how about it's putting out a high emission of CO2, more than normally what a comet would do?
Well, yes, normally there's a preponderancy of liquid water and ice. And usually it's at least 3 to 4 to 1 versus CO2. And yet when we look at this 3I Atlas, we're seeing a ratio of 8 to 1 CO2 to water or liquid ice, or solid ice. These things are very unusual. Now, people like Avi Loeb can comment on that, but that's not my area of expertise. But it is very unusual. So I would have to agree that it's unusual. But the one thing, as I've mentioned, that sticks out to me is I have seen the chemistry of spacecraft. The chemistry of the nickel alloys that are being shed by 3I Atlas with no iron is much more consistent with the spacecraft than with any natural asteroid or comet.
Yeah, it is. Now, some scientists are saying, it's a breakaway maybe of a planet in another solar system that could be, instead of being iron-based or carbon-based, it could be something else, and that's why it's nickel. But again, we really don't know at this point. But again, it is also making changes, course changes, and that a comet doesn't do.
Well, there can be elements that cause a comet to slightly alter its path.
Right.
But one of the things that got my attention early on was when they talked about non-gravitational acceleration. That is an important phrase in the space program. If we launch a vehicle and it is going to go past the moon, it's going to head for, Saturn. And as it's approaching Saturn, the gravity of Saturn is going to give it a boost in speed. And so we can calculate how close we want it to come to determine how much speed we want that spacecraft to gain. But now then, if we want to change something, then we will have that spacecraft light its engine. And when it does that, that is going to be an acceleration that is not associated with gravitational force. So when NASA talks about deep space probes and you're going to have non-gravitational acceleration, it's going to be because of the rocket engines that we've put on it. Well, with 3I Atlas, man, did somebody do something? I'm not convinced that we really have evidence of that, but it is a strange object such as we have never seen. And realistically, when the scientists try to come up with theories for how you could get pure nickel with no iron, I've talked to a lot of rocket scientists and astrophysicists when I was working with the space program, and there are no explanations that I've seen or heard that convinces me that there's a natural process to create nickel in such a pure form.
Yeah, this is really scary what's going on too. And again, I'll be honest with you, if it is a craft of some sort or a probe or whatever, I'm going to be honest with you. I know how the world governments operate. They're not going to tell the population to the last moment if something bad is going to happen, or maybe good. I don't know. But again, it's confusing because, again, like the Swan comet, that one is actually more scary than the 3I because it could slam into Mars on the Swan. The way it's projected, all it would take is it hit a space rock or something, and because it's coming in between, right close to Mars, really close.
Well, while that is possible, it is unlikely. The other key thing is that when we're looking at the other comets, and there are 6 other comets besides 3I Atlas that are coming through right now, and we've never seen this kind of a swarm of comets before. But all of the others look like natural comets. And so where they travel is always important, because if you remember, 65 million years ago, a strike in the Yucatan Peninsula was responsible for destroying the environment that the dinosaurs lived in. And so that caused the death of all of the large dinosaurs and any kind of large mammals. But this is just too unusual. So I look at that nickel signature, and that just bothers the daylights out of me, because I've seen those kind of signatures before, but they were always on our spacecraft.
Yeah. And that, and again, that's the first thing it alarmed me, was the nickel. And then the mass amount of CO2 coming out of it. It just makes me wonder, what is in it? And again, maybe we'll find out. I don't know. Now, you were at NASA when we had, like what's behind you. Why did we get rid of all the capabilities to go up in space?
Well, we got rid of this space shuttle because we had initially thought that we could launch 18 to 20 space shuttle missions a year, and that it would be very cost effective. But as it turned out, even at the end of its lifetime, the space shuttles orbiters were still experimental aircraft vehicles, and we were still learning more about them. And what we found out was they were so complicated that there was no way on Earth that we could launch them with the frequency that we had intended. And the expenditure of money to continue to launch the space shuttle could be better spent on unmanned rockets to launch the satellites and other observatories. While I was there, I was serving on the mission that launched the Hubble Space Telescope, and then we get it up and it needs fixing. So I supported some of the missions where they went up and applied the optical corrections for that. But there's one thing I want us to keep in perspective. If we believe that UAPs, UFOs, and beings from other star systems have been visiting our planet for a long time, they are actually more advanced than any of the planetary systems or star systems that would have launched 3I Atlas. So while this is an unusual object because of the way it's acting. If you compare that to the UAPs that we have documented that can fly without breaking a sonic boom when they pass the sound barrier, that can go transmedium and travel through the space, the air, and the water. We have potentially more advanced aliens on and around our planet right now than whoever it was that launched the 3i Atlas. So the current batch of UAPs and non-human intelligences that we have seen over the past 8,000 years on Earth are actually more advanced, I would believe, than any non-human intelligence that launched the 3i Atlas. So I would imagine that any non-human intelligences that are already with us are just watching to see, hey, how are these people going to respond when they see this relatively low-tech thing coming in? Because for the non-human intelligences that are able to do all of the things that we have documented for so many years, they would be far superior. They would not have to use something like 3i Atlas. So if this came from another star system, it was from a technology level that was lower than the ones that we're encountering all the time.
And again, too, with portals and all this stuff, what Michio Kaku explained on the show, traveling to another galaxy, another solar system, whatever, it could be just like a hologram, just going from one, like a tunnel going to each one. What I'm confused about, and I got to ask you a question, and you don't have to answer it. When you were at NASA with the astronauts, was there ever any scuttlebutt about alien bases on the moon? Did you ever hear anything like that?
Not about alien bases on the moon.
How about craft?
I have heard from more than one source that the Apollo missions experienced flight partners, shall I say, that followed them to the moon, around the moon, and in some cases back from the moon, but that no one wanted to report that, because the moment they do that, that actually overshadows the space program, because everybody would go crazy if we use NASA to document non-human craft following us around the moon.
That makes a lot of sense, too, because also, let's face it, if that came out, I think people would, at that time, would have panicked more than now, because I think people are getting used to hearing about UAPs, UFOs, flying discs, or whatever you want to call them tonight. But here's the part, is we are being visited. They are craft. And, I'll be honest with you, I'm not happy with the Congress, because they're just doing it to pacify people, these hearings.
Well, I have to say that I was very underwhelmed with the video they showed. First of all, we don't know what the object was that was being tracked. But if we felt that it was a dangerous vehicle of some sort, whether it would be something fired by the Houthis or something that would be in the UAP category, it's a flying object. And we don't use air-to-ground missiles to take out flying flying objects. If being in the Air Force, and I used to fly F-16 for a short while. If we thought something was really dangerous, we would not let a drone or a helicopter fire a Hellfire missile at it. We would use an IR-guided missile, an AMRAAM. It would be an air-to-air missile that would hit it. Not only that, but the AGM that struck this vehicle did not detonate. Now then, Hellfire missiles are very reliable. So why did it not explode when it struck it? Not only that, but the missile continued off to the right of the screen, and the object that was being monitored was disrupted in its flight for a short time, and then it recovered and continued to fly.
Yeah, but didn't orbs come out of it or something?
Well, when it got struck by the missile that did not explode, it still, if it was a drone or target craft, it would have knocked elements off that craft. But the fact that we were watching this so closely, and we don't see what happened a few minutes before, where it came from, or any type of evidence that, oh my goodness, we are really concerned about this. This came from the Houthis. We want to shoot it down. If we were going to shoot it down, I don't believe that we would use an air-to-ground missile. And I believe that we would use a viable warhead that when it struck it, it would explode. Neither of those things makes sense to me.
Maybe they didn't want to destroy it, but maybe kind of show a little bit of force to it.
Well, also, we do tests all the time. So if we're putting advanced technology into the Hellfire missile, and we want to see, can it hit aerial targets, even though it's an air-to-ground missile? With the new technology, can it strike aerial targets? Well, you put up a target, and then you do an experiment where you see, does the AGM strike the flying target? And if that was a test product, the explosive was probably not even active, and it was probably not loaded on the Hellfire. So when I see that, I think, this is a test. It's not the defense of an aircraft carrier against something that has been launched against it. I think when I see it, I think that's got to be a test.
Oh, that makes sense too, because I didn't believe it was off-world, which the news media kind of stressed that way, and all the podcasts, it was off-world. I think it was one of ours again, and the reason why I do it, because you confirmed. I don't know if you knew who John Lear was.
I know of him.
Yeah.
I never met him.
Yeah, he was a friend of mine, and he flew, Lear jets. His father created Lear jets. He flew all kinds of stuff for the CIA and all that and connected with it. But, he said that we had man-made craft. And you actually, last time you were on, you talked about, you were shown a video or something about a off-world craft or man-made craft.
I fully believe it was a reverse engineered vehicle, probably based on off-world technology. But as we have tried to replicate the technology of wherever those craft came from, you can't just immediately reverse engineer everything. So the technology was so far ahead of us that we have to learn bit by bit how to make this part work, how to make that part work. And so it takes time. And, I have frequently used, I don't remember if I used it last time I was on your show, but I use this as an example. If we took an F-22 to 1914, we could time travel it back and say, okay, look, here's an F-22. This is the most advanced fighter jet in the world. We want you guys to manufacture these, and you can wipe out everybody you're facing in World War I. Well, they would look at it and say, okay, well, first of all, where's the propeller?
Yeah.
Because every aircraft that they knew had a propeller. And we say, well, we don't need it. We have jet engines. Well, what are jet engines? Then we would have to explain that. And so when they would feel the surface, they would say, if the surface feels funny, we build everything out of wood, and this is all metal. So what is that about? And we'd say, well, this is these are special types of alloys that we have created to both confirm structural integrity, but also to not return a radar signal and decrease the radar cross section. And they say, well, what's radar? So even though we gave them this intact F-22, and this is only basically 100 years of human technology, there is no way anyone in 1914 could replicate an F-22.
Now, let's just keep that there. I have to go to break, and we come back. Let's continue on a little bit about this, and I'm losing my voice. But anyway, I'll try to get back during the break. We'll be right back with Gregory, so stay tuned.
Everybody's high on consolation. Everybody's trying to tell me what is right for me. My daddy tried to bore me with a sermon. Now it's plain to see they can't comfort me. Sorry, Charlie, for the imposition, but I believe I've got the strength to carry on. I need a drink and a quick decision. Now it's up to me. What will be? And she's gone, she's gone. A better light out of face. She's gone, she's gone. I pay the devil to replace her. She's gone, she's gone.
Time slips. A haunted office building on a haunted street. A haunted coal town. Mysterious black cats. Unexplained light anomalies. UFOs, UAPs in the air and on the ground. Bridges in liminal spaces. Cryptids, shamans, and a werewolf. Disclosure: you don't need a ranch in Utah. All this and more happens in rural southwestern Pennsylvania. Now available on Amazon from author Kevin Paul. Politics and the Paranormal in Greene County, Pennsylvania. Read this captivating book as soon as you can by author Kevin Paul.
Hi, this is Tim with Night Dreams Talk Radio. Catch us every Thursday on these apps, iHeart, Spreaker, Spotify, and TuneIn at 9 p.m. Pacific, midnight Eastern. And join us live on YouTube Fridays, 7 p.m. Pacific, 10 p.m. Eastern. Night Dreams Talk Radio. Don't miss it.
From deep within the static storm of government secrets and interstellar disinformation, this is Night Dreams Talk Radio, the program the truth-fearing elite wish would just go off the air. Broadcasting across the globe and straight into the unknown, we shine a high beam into the shadows of UFOs, alien encounters, and the strange fringes of the paranormal, where others fear to tread. With your host, the legendary Gary Anderson, we cut through the noise, exposing cover-ups, crash retrievals, and cosmic conspiracies they want buried. Hold on tight, because on this ride, the truth doesn't just hurt, it abducts.
And we're back with Greg. You know, my father was a electronic engineer for Boeing's back, when they were developing the work. Well, they were trying to develop the SST, the Super Transport. And his function was the electronics. And, I grew up, I was a ham radio operator at 12 years old. I mean, my whole life has been involved in either talking behind a microphone or electronics. And here's the thing, the technology, if I went back to 1955, for example, with a cell phone and gave it to the top engineer in electronics in the world, they would look at it. They would kind of come up with what it does, but to re-engineer the integrated circuits and everything on it, it would take years and years for them to do that.
Well, that's totally consistent with what I was saying about the F-22. But also, if you think that in 1947, maybe in the 60s, we recovered spacecraft from non-human intelligence. When we look inside that thing, we're going to have to figure out what's all this stuff. Now, they're not going to use simple sort of things like we did on Apollo, where you flip levers, you push buttons, you do all these things. They don't need it. If you look at the technology that we have now, we have touch screens. We don't need buttons because we can touch the buttons on the touch screens.
Right.
That was something that was absolutely impossible back then. One of the things that I like to do on the Bureau, the International UFO Bureau, is that we deal with a lot of people who have experience with different types of technology, government backgrounds, and so forth. And so when we are getting reports, which we are, we're getting UFO reports all the time, we try to match the technology that is described to someone who would be most likely to comprehend what that is. So it's difficult. But when we try to see what we as humans could do, in 1992, I saw what I feel like was probably a state-of-the-art reverse engineered spacecraft. And so, in fact, in the book I wrote, I used what the guy said to me because it's so classic. We got it from them.
Yeah.
Well, okay, we got it from them, but we're having to reverse engineer this, and it's going to take us time to do so. And so now then, how far have we progressed since 1992 to 2025? I would imagine we have progressed tremendously because we've progressed in all other technologies to a degree that in 1992, we would not recognize many of the technologies we're using today in 2025. So we have to comprehend that there is a speed at which we progress. However, all of a sudden, if a non-human intelligence says, oh, by the way, you guys don't understand quantum gravity. Well, here's you a little computer program you guys can run on your unsophisticated current computers, and it will show you how that works. And then all of a sudden, we would have a massive breakthrough in the technology that we as humans have. So we don't know where all of these things are coming from and what to do with them. But you also have to think from a governmental standpoint. What would we do with this? Just imagine that we figure out a special sort of technology that could make engines fly with hardly any use of fuel. Who do we give it to? If we give it to Boeing, all of the other companies are going to one day find out that the government preferred Boeing to all of them, and Boeing makes billions and billions of dollars on this technology, and we didn't give it to Northrop. We didn't give it to these other groups. So even if we had something like that from a governmental standpoint, there's going to be a problem in what do we do with it.
That is interesting. Now, we got a caller. Let's take a call. And do you have a question for our guest tonight?
Yes, this is Art.
Hi, Art.
Hi. I'm glad you're doing okay, Gary. Everything's good, I hope. But yeah, the question I have, and there's so much because I've seen too many things of different ships. I never saw a flying saucer, but the question I'm planning to have is, I saw like a craft that was from in the 14th century painting, like a cone shape, kind of the same characteristics of it, but yet different way it's shaped. There's some pictures show different the way they're painted, but the one that I saw was of that nature. I thought it was 14th century. Then I saw like a walnut shape. It was size of a Volkswagen. And then the cigar shape, which I sent Gary a few of those cigar shape photos. And there's these things called like a cube bar, like a cigar, but it's rectangle shaped. And I saw not too far from me, 150 feet up, was like a domino shaped black stealthy, about the size of an aircraft carrier because it had a tower on it. And the way it came out, the next day was a chevron. And these are the black stealthy ones. My first time I saw one, 3 in a row, a triangle, and then no sound. And the way they all disappeared were differently. The way they move, the way they try. But it seemed one thing in all the UAPs I've seen and everything, or the orbs, or what we want to call them. I always noted it was a mind connection that they saw me, they reacted, and they all kind of vanished differently. But does that mean that there's different races all over our skies, and are they always been here? What's your opinion on that? I just so much to details of things, but this is my curiosity because I'm in the position of why did I get to see so many, and then they all look different. They don't seem to come from the same origin of if they're alien race or not. So I'll leave you with that and off the air. Thank you very much, Gary. And good, get healthy.
Okay, my friend.
Thank you. Okay, bye.
Well, Greg, what do you think about all that?
Hardly likely that if there is life on another planet, is going to be life on a lot of other planets.
Yeah.
And so different kinds of intelligence will develop differently. Some of it is much like us. Some of it's not going to be. But we have known for thousands of years that these kind of beings have been coming down to see us. In the Navajo and Anasazi, they have the star people who came down to them. If you talk about the Aztec and the Mayan, they had the gods who came down to them. If you talk about India and the Vedic texts, they tell the same stories. In the Bible, it says that the sons of God came down to the daughters of men, and they took wives of them, and they had hybrid children. Now, when you go back to all of these ancient texts, they're all telling the same kind of story. So I don't know why we would disbelieve the people back then. And we say, oh, well, they couldn't have built the pyramids. Well, they did build the pyramids at Baalbek. They moved these massive monoliths. Just because we don't understand how they did it doesn't change the fact that they did it. Did they do it with help? Well, that's the part we have to try to figure out. But we are seeing evidence of technology and vehicles that we didn't make. But think about fighter jets, especially in World War II and right after World War II. The Germans had the Messerschmitt 262. The U.S. Came out with the P-80s, and the different manufacturing nations came up with all kinds of different versions of aircraft. Once we started learning the aerodynamics of it, all of the craft started looking sort of like each other because we understood, okay, there is physics involved and we need to follow these physical principles. And so even though there are differences in our aircraft, the differences in our aircraft now don't look anything at all like they were in World War I and World War II when they didn't understand the physics and aerodynamics of flight.
You're absolutely right. But, isn't this kind of strange that technology at a certain point started advancing? Yeah, I mean, if you look at, like in electronics, I can go from like the early 1900s to like the 50s. Everything, or even late 50s, was tube oriented. And then the transistor was invented. Then the integrated circuit was developed. And then, the integrated circuit got smaller and smaller and more capability than a massive. I can go by a radio station, huge. You're talking about a transmitter back in the even 60s that was probably 20 feet long. If it was like 100,000 watt and huge, 8 feet high and deep. Now the transmitters are all small because it's all integrated circuits. I mean, technology is advancing really fast, faster now than it ever has.
Well, think about Nikola Tesla. Think of all of the advances he was responsible for. He convinced the world to use alternating current. He believed that electrical signals could be sent through the air. He was the true inventor of the radio. He created all of these new things, and people after him then built on what he did. If we go back to ancient Greece, there was scientists essentially that built this spherical object, and it had nozzles pointing away from each other on each end. And they would put water in there and they would heat it, and it would spin at like 500 cycles a minute. What they needed was to just hook up a chain to that spinning steam toy, hook that up to a wheel, and we could have had the Industrial Revolution 2,200 years ago.
Oh, yeah.
So a lot of times you have one thing that leads to another. When we learned about harmonics for the telegraph, that's why so many people at the same time came up with a telephone. And, the story that I've heard is that there was a guy who had invented a better telephone than Alexander Graham Bell, but his lawyer was going to drop off the papers at the registration bureau, but he stopped to have breakfast, and he came in later than the lawyer for Alexander Graham Bell. If the other guy had been there first, Alexander Graham Bell, no one would know, because the other guy would have been able to be the one who devised the telegraph, but it was all based on the advancement of technology available at that moment. So a lot of you have to build one thing on top of another, on top of another, on top of another. For the longest time, people believed that there were four elements, and it was earth, wind, fire, and earth. And then all of a sudden we started saying, well, no, there are atoms, and each atom is going to be determined its characteristics based on what its nucleus and electrons are doing. And so we threw away all of the old stuff. But as long as we believed the wrong information, we could not advance to the right information. So whether we have done all of these advances all by ourselves, or whether we have had assistance in saying, well, look, here's a transistor, see what you can do with this. Well, all of a sudden we make great advances for that. But the problem is the real truth of what was going on is hidden behind a government cloak of secrecy. And we unfortunately know that we can't trust what the government has told us. So even when they give us an explanation, we don't know if we can really trust that explanation.
Well, how do you feel, again, being on the board and all this stuff with, about UAPs and stuff? Do you think we're going to be told the truth, what is going on? Or is this going to drag out for years and years?
Well, we have had people telling the truth all along. It's just that we have had resistance within the official corridors to say, I know that's what you saw, but it's not really what you saw. Here's what you really saw. Yeah. It was swamp gas, or it was something like this. The government is very reluctant to reveal details. When we were building the atomic bomb, we needed plastic material to cover some of the metal objects because the chemicals they were using was highly corrosive. Well, they accidentally discovered Teflon. And so at the time, Teflon was the only thing that they could use for some of those wires. So Teflon was one of the biggest chemical secrets in the world. And then they found better stuff, and they said, well, we don't need this Teflon anymore. So DuPont said, well, what if we put it on pans so they could fry eggs with it? And say, okay, let's do that. So Teflon went from one of the most secret chemicals on the planet to everybody's buying a Teflon skillet.
Yeah. You're absolutely right on that. Here's the thing, though. In any of these groups you belong to, have you ever got any information on something that really scared you about the ETs, UAPs?
I was told information that concerned me, but at the same time, many of the people who were telling me the stories also emphasized the fact that while these things were going on, we were not being attacked. If the United States in the year 2025 wanted to declare war on Aruba, we could go in there and just obliterate them. If we wanted to attack Cuba, we could do that. So one of the keys is that when people see American aircraft, are they attacking them? Well, our aircraft don't attack people that don't attack us unless we, as the American people, are given a really good reason to attack them. We don't just go around attacking people, but if we wanted to, we could. Well, if these non-human intelligences have all kinds of great capabilities that we don't know, and yet they are not using them to attack us, are they really as big of a threat as we tend to think as human beings? Because we don't trust even other human beings.
No.
So how can we trust these beings with such more highly advanced technology than us? So there's a lot of things just in the human nature that causes us to be afraid of things that we don't know, even if they have not demonstrated a reason for us to really fear them. Just the fact that they could possibly do something is enough for us to create fear.
How about all these people that claim they've been abducted and taken aboard a craft and experimented on? What's your gut feeling on that as being a medical, flight surgeon?
I have never directly dealt with medical treatment for someone who has done this, but sort of like the pictures from the 14th century and the writings from ancient India from 2,500 years ago that described vimanas and weapons that would fly through the air, and they would self-correct to where every time they were launched, they would hit something. We would just call that an air-to-air missile now. How could there be that many elements that we understand that are technology now that we did not understand back then? There are so many people who have had the same kind of experiences, and they have had physical markings, and they have had changes in their personality, in their knowledge level. I cannot disbelieve them.
That's the part it gets me, that if I was, and I said this so many times on the show, if I'm just walking down the street in New York and a van pulls up to me and yanks me into the van and they take me into some warehouse and they start experimenting with me, oh, this is the liver, this is the heart, this is the kidney, and all that. If I could identify who they are, they're going to prison for a long time. But it seems like these people that are being abducted. I mean, I've interviewed some people. I don't know if you know who Terry Lovelace was. He just recently passed away. But he had an encounter when he was in the Air Force with a friend that were abducted and taken aboard a craft. And he said he saw a lot of naked people on the craft, hearing screaming, and people being prodded and poked and experimented on. And saw people in tubes with liquid. Now, that's what he claimed. If that is going on, then they don't really care about us as a human life to put people through that. Now, he was released on that craft, but the craft took off with all these people aboard. And I have heard it from many other people, the same type of stories. If that is going on, that tells me they don't really care about us the same way we go out and tag, wildlife and experiment on dogs and cats and monkeys. It's alarming.
Yes. Well, when I was in medical school, I learned to dissect cadavers and then work on actual human beings. But this is not done anymore. But for advanced trauma life support, back in the 70s and 80s, they would wound numbers of animals so that we could practice our techniques of putting in chest tubes and sewing up thoracic wounds and all of these kind of things. So we have done this to what we view as lesser beings. If these beings are so much more advanced than us, they are looking at us as though we were the animals that we're doing experiments on.
Yeah,
so
that's scary, really scary when you think of that.
That would show their attitude. But, we do all kinds of experiments. When I was back at the Cape, the Israeli Space Agency sent up 70,000 Hornets in a container because they wanted to know, can they fly? Can they reproduce? And so they did this. We would cut up earthworms and watch their ability to heal in microgravity. So if this is our attitude, it would be hard not to believe that greatly advanced non-human intelligences might treat us the same way.
Well, years ago, and this is going back maybe 8 years ago, I had a friend who's no longer with us. He was with the CIA. And at the time, he sent me a couple pictures, which I no longer have on, I don't even have that computer anymore, of human mutilation that was no way done by our technology, the same way with cattle mutilation. And he sent me a couple of pictures, and that really scared the you-know-what out of me to see something like that. Have you ever seen anything like that?
I have not seen it personally, but I certainly know of it happening. One of my good friends is Linda Moulton Howe, and since 1979, she has been doing excellent reporting on all of these kind of findings. And the government would come back and tell her and the witnesses, you didn't really see that. Here's what you really saw, and it's nothing at all like what you believed. And, it's trying to tell you, you cannot trust your eyes. You cannot trust your experiences. We know better than you do. And while I'm concerned about what non-human intelligences can do, I'm very concerned about what human intelligence will do, because we have developed nuclear weapons capable of destroying our life on this planet. We have killed people in World War II, killed people in World War I. Throughout history, we have always killed each other and demonstrated that we don't really care about our enemies. We're going to do anything we can to them. During World War II, the Japanese and German scientists did inhuman experiments on people that they had captured. It's in our nature to be cruel. If other beings on other planets had to fight for survival at some point in their past, why would they have not developed the same tendencies toward violence, even if they have matured? But they still have those tendencies.
Greg, you're so right. I've said that so many times on the show, is from Cain and Abel to now, we haven't changed. There's people being murdered, killed, and wars that have been nonstop on this planet. And, so many people I've interviewed said, aliens would never hurt mankind. They're here to help us. And I always say, how do we know if they again, look at us, our civilization. At this rate, we're never going to make it to civilization 1. We're not, because we have all these traits of anger and killing. And just because some people on another planet is so far advanced, they could still have those traits. And again, we don't know what's going on. People are vanishing on this planet. If you look at the database for the FBI, there's a lot of people that go missing now. Yeah, there's serial killers, people walking off in the woods and committing suicide, but there's still a lot of people vanishing. Not just in our country, worldwide. Something is going on.
Well, there are also lots of historical stories and evidence that not all of the extraterrestrials, non-human intelligences, are bad. If you look through the historical religious texts, we have seen angels that did very good things. We know about the Watchers from the Book of Enoch. If there have been some of the non-human intelligence aliens that have come down to do bad things to us, there may be other non-human intelligences that are acting to moderate what is being done to mankind. And so while there could be some that are destructive to mankind, there could be some that are very protective of mankind. When I read the Bible and I hear about all of these kind of things, by definition, angels are not humans. They were not born on this planet. So every time the Bible talks about an angel, it's talking about an extraterrestrial.
Right.
But it's talking about an extraterrestrial that had good motives toward us. So you have to sort of put these things in perspective. There's not just one kind of animal in the world that kills humans. There are places that have tigers. There are places that have sharks. There are places that have hyenas. One of the things that I find most fascinating is that when I look at global medicine from a military standpoint, do you have any idea what the most dangerous animal on this planet is besides humans?
I don't. What is it?
Mosquitoes. With malaria and other mosquito-borne illnesses, they kill millions of humans every year. We don't need to fear the sharks, the lions, the tigers, anything in the way that we have to fear mosquitoes and sandflies. In the Middle East, when we had people fighting in the Middle East, we had lots of cases of leishmaniasis that came from sandflies. So while you say, what are you scared of? People might say a lion, a tiger, a shark. No, what you should be scared of is the mosquitoes.
Yeah,
and so sometimes it's hard for humans to put the right things in the proper perspectives.
What would you like to see happen with Congress, with disclosure?
I would like for them to call in active military leadership, put them under oath, and say, we are going to have you testify, and then we will send investigative teams to see whether you tell us the truth. Now, taking anecdotal evidence and putting people in front of Congress and they tell interesting stories, that's nice. But I think we're beyond the point of proving that UAPs are real. So what we need to do is not keep trying to prove the same thing, giving the same evidence, because the people who believe in UAPs already believe in UAPs. The people who absolutely do not believe in UAPs do not believe in UAPs. And having more people just sit and talk to people in Congress is not going to do it. We need to get the people in authority and force them to tell the truth.
That's going to be the hard part right there. Now, you have a book. What's the name of the book and how can they find it?
Okay. The book is We Got It From Them. I mean, I tried to think of a title, but as I kept going back to it, I said, man, there's nothing better than that. It's like a catchphrase in a movie. We got it from them. It's on Amazon, published by Unexplained Media. But in it, one of the things that I also did, besides just discuss UAP type things, I wanted to make something more of it. So at the end of each chapter, I tell one of the life stories that I have experienced as a military officer, doing things in all different kinds of locations in the world. So I wanted people to get the feeling that you don't just sit at an airbase and fly your planes and come back, and that's all there is to it. In supporting the space shuttle, for instance, I had to go to the Gambia and Morocco because we had transoceanic abort landing sites there. And so some of the things I experienced there, in fact, one story in particular, I wanted to buy stamps for a postcard. I'm not going to tell the rest of it, but I ended up with two guys with machetes behind me and a guy trying to sell me cocaine. And all I wanted was some stamps for my postcards. So things like that happened. But then I also, on the last section that I did of this, I included the fact that I just flat out said, I have PTSD. As a flight surgeon, a military physician, I have seen thousands of people in the military, men and women, that have been put in situations where they come out of it and they have PTSD, but for all kinds of different reasons. One of the worst situations that I dealt with was one of my former pilots was a ground pounder in Vietnam, and they were in a firefight. And so he had this battle buddy that was with him, and they were best friends. And so they were giving suppression fire from this area that they had walked into an ambush. Well, he had emptied his clip for his M16, and so he put the next clip in, and he just hesitated because it was such a tough firefight. While he paused, his best friend right next to him got hit and killed right in front of him. And so for the rest of his life, he has had this guilt that if he had gone ahead and started giving suppression fire, his buddy could have backed off and his buddy would not have died that day. Now, then, when people would go to this man, he had, I think he had a Bronze Star with V device for valor. And so people would call him a hero. But every time they would call him a hero, he would think back, if I'd been a hero, my buddy wouldn't have been killed that day. And he may have already passed by now, but for the rest of his life, he was going to have to deal with that. And so people could say all kinds of wonderful things to him. We appreciate your service. We do all this stuff. We'll give you veteran benefits. And to him, it all goes back to the fact that his buddy died because he hesitated.
Well,
how are you going to live with that?
You don't, because I'll tell you, I was in Vietnam, and a lot of people I know that when they came back, it did something to you emotionally. I mean, there isn't a night I don't go to bed, I don't have nightmares, and that is a lot of years ago. So I mean, things like that. If the people in wars or being abducted, and that's one thing. Before I let you go. There is no real place for somebody who has been abducted to call and get help. I mean, there's UFO reporting centers, there's this and that, but there's no real place for somebody that feels they've been abducted and they go to bed every night, Greg, worried about, are they going to be abducted again? Or is their wife or child going to be abducted?
Yeah. Well, those are very serious considerations. There are specific therapists who deal with those things. In fact, in the International UFO Bureau, we have one whole section on just trying to help people who have had those kind of experiences. And largely, you want people who have had similar experiences talking to them. Just like, you know, if you're a combat veteran and, you know, like I said, I've got PTSD. The VA wanted me evaluated. And so I went to see this psychiatrist. And by the time I was through with that psychiatrist, I could have easily choked him to death.
Yeah.
He was very obnoxious. He said all kinds of things that rubbed me the wrong way. And when I started to leave his office, he said, you know, I think you're disturbed by what we talked about today. You might want to sit for 5 minutes before you get in your car and drive. I was sitting there, look, I will put you in front of my car and then I will drive it.
Yeah.
I was so angry with that man.
Well, I got to ask you a
then-
question. Sorry to interrupt
Yeah.
you. Did they try to give you a prescription of medication too at the same time?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, I'm on medications for it, and some of the medications can help. In fact, in the section that I wrote, I went through in detail the different kinds of treatments that are available for people with PTSD, especially for veterans, but anyone with PTSD. I went through as a doctor and said, here's a treatment, here's a treatment, here's a treatment, here's a treatment. And so even though it was a UAP book, I put a section on the treatment of PTSD in there because I know it's so important. So yes, I wanted to tell the story of UAPs, but I felt an obligation to tell people PTSD is normal when you're put in an abnormal situation. You go back to ancient Sparta. The Spartans were vicious fighters, but we've uncovered documents from doctors back then, and they wrote descriptions of what their warriors were going through, and it was PTSD.
Oh, yeah. Now, do you have a website or anything to share?
Well, no.
Oh,
No. I'm not good with media, and especially this week because, you know, I'm going to go ahead and say it. Some sort of people have been messing with me badly. Stuff has disappeared from my computer. I had to get a new phone because my old phone was totally screwed up. We gave it to Apple and they said, well, we will try to fix it in a week. And if we can fix it in a week, we'll give it back to you. If not, we'll give you a new phone. In a week, they said, it's too messed up. Our security people cannot fix this. So they gave me a new phone just in the last 3 days. My Amazon account was frozen. My LinkedIn account was frozen. I had computer problems. A friend of mine tried to phone me and do a FaceTime, and he was sent to somebody else, and he saw something totally different from anything I have in my house, and he heard people talking. Well, because I was waiting for him to call me and he didn't, I called him and he said, well, I'm on the phone with you. And I said, no, you're not. I don't know who you're on the phone with. And he took pictures and showed me what he was seeing, but he had dialed my number and somebody shifted it. So right now I'm really frustrated and aggravated and just a little bit concerned because there are people messing with me. I got an invitation to speak on this webcast, and then it turned out that it was all fake, and so they had wanted me to stay up until 1 o'clock in the morning to do this. So I stayed up until 1 o'clock in the morning, and then it never happened. So somebody somewhere is really messing with me, and especially just these last 3 days, I don't know what I can do about it.
It's really hard because with us, James, you can jump in here too if you want. Back about 4 or 5 years ago with my show, again, I use security devices on all the computers, the servers. We run 7 computers to do the show. And all of a sudden, I was talking to James, and I said, something's going on. And the time I got back, somebody erased 500 of our shows. It was gone, just gone. And then, didn't we have a lot of other problems getting hacked for a period of time?
Had a lot of problems, especially when we had a certain guest on about to go on the air, and 1 minute we'd get hacked and delayed, and then you had a helicopter above your house, and they sent you an email that said, just so you know.
Yeah. I mean, again, what you're doing is trying to get the word out, and it's very much appreciated to the right people out there. But there is always some people out there that, either they're jealous or they don't want your message to get out, or our message to get out.
When the book that I wrote, we got it from them. I had sent it to my publisher, and she had been working on it. And all of a sudden she contacted me and she said, I don't know what's happened. Everything else is fine, but your file has been totally deleted from my computer. Wow. So I said, no problem. I'll send it to you from my computer. I went to my computer. That file had been deleted from my computer on the same day. Now, then, fortunately, I'm paranoid. So I kept 5 copies on 5 thumb drives that I kept in 5 different locations. So I brought one of the thumb drives back, sent it to her, and that's the book that you can read right now. But somebody tried to delete it from her computer, from my computer. They did not want that book to come out.
Yeah. And again, what's the name of the book for the listeners?
We got it from them.
Okay. Well, hey, I want to say, Greg, thank you for coming back on. I think we learned a lot tonight about the Atlas comet, what's going on with abductions and everything else. And I do really appreciate, what you're doing. And I want to also thank you to the service to our country.
Yes. Well, I did a lot of stuff for this country, and much of it I'll never be able to discuss. But that's the way it is in the military. You're not really doing things to, some people are, but you're not really doing things to promote yourself. You're doing things to take care of your buddies and the mission that you have been assigned. And so I was always most concerned, can I accomplish the mission I was given? And I just about always did.
Well, thank you so much, Greg. And, I want to get you back on in the future if you're willing to come back on.
Oh, sure.
Okay, my friend.
Well, as long as my computer doesn't blow up.
Yeah, that's what I say every day. Every day when I get ready to do the show. Is it all going to work?
Well, somebody took my phone call and rerouted that to somebody else. Now, the average person out there is not going to be able to figure out a way to make a phone call go to somebody else. Oh. And that happened to me today.
Wow. Greg, you take care, okay?
Okay.
Okay, my friend. So anyway, everybody, I tell you, that is really scary when stuff like that happens, isn't it, James?
It is, because it's out of your control. It just goes to show that they have long long-reaching arms, and they can do things that you can't do nothing to protect yourself.
Yeah, and you can't even get the authorities to do anything. That's the scary part. Because again, I tried with the authorities. I didn't get anywhere. But, Greg had a lot of good things to say here tonight. Again, like I've told people, if ETs are abducting people and doing all this stuff, they don't really look at us as humans and give us compassion that we're supposed to give each other. And he pointed out, we don't give compassion to any animals that we experiment on.
No, that's true. It's very true, and I think it's been going on a long time. It will continue to go on. I don't think there's anything we can do to stop it. I think a lot of these beings, I think they've been here already for thousands of years.
Oh yeah, well, more than that, I think, since mankind.
Yeah.
But again, everybody, if you can help support the show to keep us growing and on the air, you can just go on to YouTube and become a member. To put a show on like this, it's not cheap, and we're an independent show worldwide. So the cost of putting the show on is getting really expensive. And I cut down the advertising on our side. So, all that because people were complaining about the advertising. So I cut out a lot of it to give more entertainment with the guests. And who do we have, by the way, next Thursday on the apps? And who do we have on YouTube next Friday?
Well, next Thursday, we've got Lance Hightower coming back. He hasn't been on for about 3 years. He was sick there for about a year. But listen, he's boots on the ground. He gets scary reports from Dogman and Bigfoot. And he actually goes to the locations, interviews the people. He's had his own experience. I'm going to tell you something. You don't want to miss this show. It's going to be hair-raising. And then next Friday, we have Dick Algeier coming back on. He's a remote viewer, and man, he was fantastic last time he was on about 4 or 5, 6 months ago. He can remote view all kinds of stuff. And boy, that's going to be interesting too.
Yeah, and we're trying to get Major Ed Dames tracked down to get him back on. But who do we have on the following week?
The following week, let's see. We got Nadine Lalich coming on. She's an abductee. She's going to be talking about her experiences. And then we got Mr. Dr. John Blitch coming on. Now, he is former military. He's a UFO alien experiencer. He was also, I think he was friends with Jake Barber, and he's been and did some stuff with him. But yeah, he's going to be interesting too.
Yeah, so, we have really stepped up the game on the show with the quality of the guests. And again, I think you, the listener folks out there, you deserve, not all this hype that you hear on all these other podcasts. We're not going to do that. We believe that talk radio from the 70s to the 90s was king. And that's what we try to do. We try to bring back talk radio of the 70s and 90s, the way we interview and with the guests and all that. I hope you really enjoyed our guest tonight. I tell you, it gave me a lot to think about what this comet, the 3-Eye Atlas, is. Is it really a comet? Is it a spacecraft? As Abby Loeb said, it could be coming here to do harm to our planet. We don't know. But I know it has been making changes in its course on a regular basis. So, I mean, again, if you listen who scientists you go listen to, they all have different theories. But again, this thing is really making shift changes, and that is scary. And it's speeding up. It's now going to come towards us a lot sooner than what they expected. That is also interesting too. So we got a lot of things going on here. So again, right now there's 6 comets going to be flying, and we're going to have a lot. If you got a good camera, a telescope, man, you can get some really good pictures.
Yeah, and it was great having Dr. Rogers back on because, listen, he is a former NASA scientist, so what a better person to get.
Flight surgeon, you figure all the astronauts that,
Yeah, his resume is a mile long, the stuff he knows and has done, so what a better source to get information about the subjects that we've been talking about.
And, he flew everything from F-16s to helicopters. He piloted a nuclear submarine. You know, and that's a big story on itself. I mean, this guy has done a lot of things that, the average person didn't know. And he met some of the famous astronauts that went to the moon. So, I mean, again, what he said, when I asked him about things on the moon and stuff like that, did you hear he went silent for a second while he had to figure out how to say it?
Yeah, well, some things he can't really mention still. Yeah.
But I'm always trying to get more information. But he did admit the astronauts, saw these UFOs or these UAPs flying around their craft when we were sending them up, the space shuttle and everything else.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, no, that was good. He come out with some great information tonight. Yeah, the thing that people don't realize, for him to be the head of the flight surgeon for NASA, he had to fly and know how to fly every craft out there. So, in other words, because every pilot's different, like a helicopter pilot, a certain helicopter, there's certain switches, like I heard him tell one story. If his shoulder was out of place, but he still wanted, he didn't want to be grounded, but if there was a certain emergency where he couldn't raise his shoulder to flip this one switch, that craft could blow up.
Yeah, you mean crash?
Crash and blow up. Yeah, there's little things like that. He had to know all that. So what a amazing mind that guy must have.
Oh yeah, and he's really a nice person. And him getting hacked, my heart goes out to him again, because when we got hacked all those times back a few years ago, that was a nightmare and frustrating and expensive. Just think, we lost 500 shows off the platform.
Yeah.
You know how much time we put into effort for those 500 shows? I have them just totally disappear.
Yeah, well, it's the average 2 hours a show. That's a low figure. That's right there.
Well, yeah, but back then we were like 3 hours long too.
Yeah, I know it. Yeah, the poor guy's going through it. Obviously, there's a few agencies or whoever that probably doesn't. He knows a lot of stuff, but he's not going to. I don't see him coming out with stuff he shouldn't talk about. He's very honorable.
Oh yeah. Well, everybody, I want to thank you so much for tuning in, folks. It's just nice to have you listening and us back there. By the way, our numbers on YouTube are growing. I bet by tomorrow we'll be at 343,000. My goal is by end of December to be at, I hate to say it, 500,000 subscribers just on YouTube.
Well, yeah, I'd better shoot for 400 first.
We're at 431 or 32.
We're at 342. 342.
Yeah, okay. Well, we'll hit that at this rate. If you think about it, how fast we're growing.
Yeah, it's pretty fast. We've gained as many new subscribers in a month as some people's gotten 10 years.
Yeah, and you know what? Even with me being off for over a month, we were still growing.
Yeah, and that relates back to, you have to have a good quality show to be able to do that, honestly. I mean,
well, I'm not Nori on Coast to Coast or some of these other shows. I mean, I'm more laid back.
Well, you got your niche.
Yeah, but you know what? I do the show like a conversation. If they were sitting on the couch and we're just having a conversation, what better way to get more information to you folks than doing it that way, rather than being all hyped up and spreading bullshit?
Look at all the new information that I know, Dr. Rogers, because I've seen him in so many podcasts. And I'm going to tell you something. Before the show tonight, he told me, because we talked, Dr. Rogers, he told me he's been on so many podcasts, and he said, honestly, there's a lot of them after I'm on, I'd say to myself, I'm never going on that show again. And then there's some of them, like ours, he's thrilled. He hopes he can come back on.
Yeah. Well, everybody have a good one, and we will catch next Thursday on your favorite app at 9 p.m. Pacific, midnight, 12 a.m. And then 7 p.m. next Friday, we'll be here, and 10 p.m. Eastern. Till then, everybody have a good one. And again, I want to thank you all so much for sticking with us while I was off.
Available now. Bigfoot Origins, The Search for the Cryptid Homeland by Mike Dupler. This is the most comprehensive and in-depth examination of Bigfoot ever written. How did Bigfoot in North America, the Yowie in Australia, and the Woodwoes, Britain's Bigfoot, get to where they are today? Mike Dupler connects the dots, and the conclusions are incredible. This changes everything. Don't be left out in the woods, in the cold, not knowing. Read Bigfoot Origins, The Search for the Cryptid Homeland by Mike Dupler. Available now on Amazon.
Who's friends with all the night dreamers talking to you at night? Gary on the radio, but maybe he's not in sight. Bigfoot's on his tail, flying UFOs, that's right. Gary's Talk Show Radio, Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday nights. If you need a friend